The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and neighbors. This is Bill Ames, the co-host of the Film Connection, beaming to you once a month from the ECAT station in Easton. Every month we try, my co-host and I should say, try to bring to people in Easton and the surrounding towns via the miracle of cable shows about local residents or friends of local residents and related people who have made a career in media, different aspects of it. So there's many interesting stories out there. The world of media is global and it's interesting and it's for all ages. So I'd like to introduce my co-host, the brains behind this operation for many years, the one and only Priscilla. Priscilla Almquist-Olsen. Over to you, Priscilla.
Thank you. And I'm known by our guest as Penny Olsen. So you can feel free, Ethan and Meredith, to hail me with that name if you wish. Okay. It's wonderful to have you here. Ethan, Erwin, and I go back a long time. 2008, was it? 2001. Oh, it can't be. 24 years? I have heard your...
Almost 25. I think I met your son in the summer of 2001.
Wow. Okay. Well, I have heard your voice. I have never seen your image. So this is a treat to see your persona. Yes. Okay. And to meet your lovely wife, Meredith. And you two are a team in every sense of the word. Meredith, you're a screenwriter and a director. Ethan, you're a writer and a producer. What a combination. Let's start with Ethan. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and all of the influences on your life, on your journey to where you are today.
Absolutely. So yeah, I grew up in San Diego, California, and my family was not involved in the film business in any way. They're both air traffic controllers and pilots, my parents, but I always loved movies from a very young age. Really, fell in love with storytelling, and obviously, like everyone, made movies with a camcorder in the backyard with my friends, but then went to NYU Film School. Always knew I wanted to make movies, and my parents are very supportive of that. So went to NYU, which is actually where Meredith and I met. And while I was at NYU, I interned in the summers out in Hollywood at production companies that, again, I had no connection to, but that had made movies that I liked. So in the summer of 2000, I interned at Jerry Bruckheimer Films because they had made, Top Gun and Crimson Tide and Armageddon and Bad Boys and Beverly Hills Cop, a ton of movies that I loved, and so I interned there, which was a great experience, and I'm still talking to people that I met back then. And then in the summer of 2001, interned at Silver Pictures, which had made Die Hard and Predator and Lethal Weapon and The Matrix, and again, movies I grew up loving. And that is where I met your son, Eric Olsen, who was either creative executive or director of development or vice president at the time. I can't remember. It was all very exciting, but it was on the Warner Brothers lot. And so I got to spend the summer at the Warner Brothers lot, running around. A lot of, internship work is, kind of gopher type stuff, making copies, go and pick up Starbucks orders. But you also get to just be around while they're talking about making movies. And you get to sort of be a sponge and pick all that up. And I was very fortunate. They let me read scripts and do coverage, which is essentially like a book report on a script. And I did that, pretty regularly, to the point that they ended up hiring me when I graduated to become a script reader. And then from there, I I can take this. I can take this all the way to the present, if you'd like.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so let's switch to Meredith. Meredith, you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and the impacts that certain people and events had on your life. That and where you now you've ended up in the film business.
That we actually have some things in common and a lot of things very different. So my dad also worked in the air industry. He worked at companies that made parts for airplanes. So that's just like a random thing we have in common. But I was actually a big theater nerd, big musical theater nerd and theater nerd and Shakespeare nerd. And when I went to NYU, I went to the theater side. And I actually thought I would never come back to LA. I went to high school in LA, and I thought I would go to New York and be on Broadway, and that would be it for me. And I directed a play off Broadway, and I interacted and worked on so many different productions. And I came to realize that art has so many forms, and really shouldn't just say there's only one way to do it. There's just so many ways, like from nowadays, like TikTok to Shakespeare in someone's basement. Like there's so many ways. And I saw this movie called Brazil, and by Terry Gilliam, and that blew my mind wide open about everything that I could do with film that only makes bigger versions of these design elements, these costume elements, these production design elements, and these performances that I love about theater. And so I realized, hey, I'd like to do this thing where also it lasts forever. It's not a show that you mount for several months and then it's gone forever. And we met actually in a cafeteria at NYU, at a food hall. And we ended up talking about the movie Event Horizon for about 3 hours, which was written by an amazing screenwriter named Philip Eisner, who we met a couple of years ago. And we told him that this really intense horror movie really is one of the reasons that we fell in love and got married. And he said, I don't get that very often. But when we graduated, we moved out to LA together, stars in our eyes. And I also started interning at a production company, and I also interned in casting, wanting to learn multiple sides of the business side of the business. Because no matter if you learn theater, whether you're studying theater or film, there's a lot that you don't learn about the actual business side of the business in school. It's a lot of practical and theory. So we both came out and started interning for producers to learn more about that side.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Film school was great. I learned how an actual film production works, like the physical nature of like what crew members do. And and one of the great things at NYU is you get to pick up a camera right away and just start making movies, and kind of, learn from your failures. And we got to, it was really neat. You get to get together with a group of people and you cycle through crew positions. So one day you're the director on your movie, and then the next day you're holding the boom mic on somebody else's movie. And so you get to learn kind of every role. But as the job that I do now as a producer, I did not learn very much of how to do that. Like the job that I've done for about 20 years is something that I only learned once I came out to LA.
Like one thing that's very simple and common is that you do as an assistant is you write what's called coverage, which is when you read a script and then you write like a 3-page report on it, and then you write a few pages of your comments, what works, what doesn't work, will it sell, will it not sell, will audiences like it, all these things. That is very common skill that you need to have, and it's not something that's really taught in college.
Well, I think that's the best skill that you can have in order to make you a wonderful screenwriter. Now, I can remember when Eric first got his internship at Silva Pictures. That's all he did. And he was given such a schedule that he had to create, he had to get these reports in or treatments so fast. He got very little sleep. But now, he started writing screenplays, and he's sold 3 of them already. And part of it echoes back to that first job as an intern that he and you got. I mean, it really serves a wonderful purpose to give you an extra skill. And
it's true, and by reading thousands of scripts for your job, you learn a lot as a writer.
Yeah, you learn what to do and also what not to do, which is even perhaps more valuable.
So
And
do you-
then,
do you
and
ever-
then you recommend to the studio whether they should proceed and further on this script. So it's important work. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, I've been watching this show on Netflix called Titans of Hollywood. Have you heard of that one?
I've not watched it yet.
It's all about the history of Hollywood and Adolf
Hmm.
Zucker and
Mhm.
and Mary Pickford and Adolf Zucker. His big contribution was, and I was wondering whether you saw this in film school, was he was filming. He wanted to do longer features, but so he would film a play of production. A play being produced, he'd film it, but it was so stilted because it's too many words. There was no sort of imagery and whatever. So that was his big contribution. Was he had this insight that it was a novel, and Mary Pickford was the one that put him onto it. She said, forget about these plays, doing these plays all the time. Here's a great novel. It was called Tess of something or other.
Oh,
Tess-
just with the Dubervilles, yeah.
Not Tessa Du. Well, it wasn't Tessa Duberville, but it might as well have been. And that was so the first feature film was a result of Mary Pickford, who apparently was a real whiz in terms of business skills, and absolutely everything in that
Yeah.
sense.
Oh yeah, no, she was instrumental in the film industry, and not just I think we always think of her as an actor, but the film that we shot, Meredith's film Tether, we shot on a stage that's been there for 100 years, and Mary Pickford directed films on this
On the
stage,
same stage?
like she was the director.
Yeah, very cool.
United Artists. Yeah, she and Charlie Chaplin and Douglas Fairbanks. They broke away from Jesse Lasky and all these people. It's history. It's very interesting because how much of our life has been consumed by what these guys produced.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's huge.
They were
So-
the pioneers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So should we proceed down the list of questions?
Well, I think maybe we first should talk about some of the films that you've been involved in, Erwin, and then Meredith, you jump in and give your opinion also. So where would you like to start? I know that Bill mentioned a few.
How about Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, so
Shadows?
so Sherlock Holmes and Games of Shadows was a really fun movie to work on. It was it was fun for me because my first job at Silver Pictures was an intern. After that, the second job that I had after that was scriptreader. The third job was assistant to Susan Levine, who became Susan Downey. She married Robert Downey Jr., and they actually had met on the set of the film Gothica, which was a Dark Castle horror film. And so I'd known Susan and Robert for a number of years. In fact, the first movie I got to work on was a film called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang that Susan produced and that Downey starred in. And so I'd known them for a long time. So to be able to actually then go and just be on set for months and months and months with them was really awesome. We shot the movie, primarily in London. And so just, on a personal level, for the opportunity to, be able to be in London for 6 months was, pretty awesome. And we also shot a little bit in Strasbourg, France. But it was really cool to be able to work on that film. It's probably the biggest movie even to this date that I've worked on, because it was like $150 million movie. It was, it was
What was
enormous.
So you got to know Robert. You got to know Guy Ritchie.
Sure, yeah.
He
Yeah, I got
became
to know him
quite,
originally. We did a film called Rock and Rolla that I was only tertiarily involved in, but a movie he did in 2008, and then he directed Sherlock Holmes 1 and 2, and so I got to spend a ton of time with him, and very very interesting, very charismatic filmmaker.
So what were some of your challenges that you faced in that movie?
It was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge. I mean, one, just on a creative level, how do you sort of top what you did in the first movie, which was already a global hit that made $500 million. So, even, right at the beginning of, before that movie, Sherlock 1 was even released, we had hired writers to come up with a sequel, and we developed that. And, it was a very quick turnaround. The first movie came out in Christmas 2009, and Sherlock 2 had to come out Christmas 2011. And so we basically just went right into it, and it was it was a big undertaking, but I think we came up with a really cool story. And one of the things I really like about the take of Sherlock Holmes and the movies that I got to work on is they're not just straight adaptations of the Doyle books, but they draw on many elements and plot strands and characters, but still weave their own tale. But in terms of the actual production, it was massive, and to be able to try and pull off these giant sequences, big action sequences, we had incredible like technology that had to work. Like we had the Phantom camera, which is incredible high speed camera that gets beautiful slow motion photography, but like it runs out in like 10 seconds. So you have to so you better make sure you are set up perfectly to get the shot you want, and it takes forever to reload, and like it's and light.
People may not realize that sometimes a really big moment like that I think it was tracking a bullet that was going through the woods, and it can take all day, hours and hours, like 7-8 hours, just to set up the shot that you then have. Like, what is it? Did you say 10 seconds?
Yeah, maybe it's 20 seconds, but it runs out very quickly. Like the film mag spools through very quickly,
which is why bigger stunt movies take so long to make.
Yeah, and I'll talk about Book of Eli in a bit, but
so Meredith, did you give Ethan advice during that filming?
I think I was like, "Well, that's cool."
She did actually. She is, because I don't come from a working with actors background. You actually were very helpful in just helping me, explain to me better ways to connect with the actors and things like that. I'm more of a creative behind the scenes guy, and have no problem talking to like writers and filmmakers, but she gave me some advice on talking to actors. But the one thing that we did on that film that was very, again, at first seemed strange to me, but was really helpful for the end product, was Robert Downey has a thing basically where when he shows up on set, he's like, here are the pages we have worked on in the past, and these are the pages we're supposed to shoot today, but we can do better than this. We can beat this. So how do we do that? And then we would spend maybe an hour or two every morning on set, walking the set, coming up with better dialogue, coming up with kind of better interactions, and in some cases fully rewriting the scene. There were days for one of the kind of the major scene at the end of the movie, I think call time was maybe 8 or 10 in the morning. We didn't shoot till 4 because we were reworking the scene and reworking it, which for I think production people can be hair raising, because you're like, whoa, this blows up our whole schedule. But the reality is it doesn't change the schedule that much, and whatever time you may lose, the end scene is actually much better. And I think it's a tribute to Downey and the fact that he doesn't want to settle creatively. He wants to have it be the best it can be, and he wants to be creatively challenged. So it was at first I was like, oh boy, how are we going to do this? And then it just became a regular part of the day, and it made the movie much better.
Which I think comedies tend to do a little bit more. The linorama, and the always seeking, how can we push it, how can we make it better? Yeah. But you just would have to organize that sort of creativity with also like, okay, here are the extras we have today. Here's the equipment we have today.
Here's what we've got.
It does still have to fit with these sets.
Yeah. Here's I do the sandbox and he was just, and then he could play in it and do whatever he wanted.
Yeah. So Meredith, we got a question for you about Lana Steele, Makeup Spy.
Yes.
So reached a massive audience of 12 million views. What are the unique challenges of creating content for streaming compared to the traditional film?
Oh, there were so many ways that it was different. That was very interesting. For one, these were 8-minute episodes. So I wrote the episodes for the entire series, which was 12 episodes. And it was somewhat of a continuous story, but each episode also had to have an interesting, and closed loop story in itself. So essentially, Lana Steele, Makeup Spy, it was sponsored by Estee Lauder Cosmetics, and it starred Lily Singh, and she played a spy who would use Estee Lauder Cosmetics to go undercover in different situations for different missions every episode. So it was very fun, very cheeky. We had so much fun.
Yeah, no, I could see that's a good hook.
Yeah. I actually don't know a whole lot about makeup, and so, but I'm like an action writer, and there's like fun moments in there, and they're like, don't worry about it, just write insert makeup here whenever there's a makeup moment, and we'll take care of it. So that was like a fun way that I worked with them, and just like finding a way to have a little 8-minute story, but also pushing forward all these cliffhangers, which I think vertical media now is very adept at.
So that prepared you for your psychological thriller called Dementia, right?
Yes, yes. They're. It's interesting. They're quite different, but because Dementia is a feature length, so I think it's between 90 and 100 minutes, and it's a much darker psychological drama and thriller. But no matter what I write, if there's people dying or people doing fisticuffs, whatever it is, I love to have little human moments, little jokes, little awkward things, because humans to be relatable is to need a character to be very human, and humans are sometimes embarrassing, they're sometimes awkward. If something scares you, you might do something embarrassing, but that's very relatable. And so I like those moments, I guess you could say moments of comedy, but I like those moments of humanity that I put in everything, no matter what the genre is.
At age 82, it's a subject which we can relate to, right?
Exactly.
So a certain amount of tension.
Right.
So, over to you, Priscilla.
Okay, I'm interested in your evaluation or analysis of Orphan, and then the sequel, which was really a prequel. And how did, Orphan is one of the movies that you and Eric made that I adore. And I think it is one of the best movies that ever got made. And I don't care what Rotten Tomatoes said about it.
Wait, what did Rotten Tomatoes say? I thought it was.
Gotta look it up.
I thought it was
bringing that
kind
up?
of well regarded. But
I know. Yeah.
But it was a great experience. It was a movie that Eric was the producer on it.
You lose a few, and
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, believe me. There are movies I've worked on that I just I won't speak about. But I am proud of all the things I've worked on. It's just some turned out better than others. But Orphan turned out great, I thought. Orphan was a horror film that we made that came out, I think, in 2010, 2009, that Jama Colette Serra directed. And it was a really, clever, well-done, stylish horror film, sort of in the vein of The Omen or The Bad Seed, an evil little kid movie. But we cast Vera Farmiga and Peter Sarsgaard as the parents, and the gravitas they brought to it and the way that Jama shot it. What was great about the film is it's really scary. There's great, if you like horror movies, there's great kills and great suspense. But if you take all of that out, if you took all the horror stuff out, it actually still works great as a family drama, a kind of a family unraveling drama. Is why I think it stood the test of time, and people really loved it. And we had an incredible actress. Isabel Fuhrman was the lead little girl. She was 10 years old when we shot it. And when we went back to do the sequel, which was a prequel, about how kind of the first family that she infiltrates, we were figuring out on the cast, it's 10 years later, like we did the movie in 2020, so we're like, obviously she's an adult now, so I don't know if it makes sense to, even though she'd be great, I don't know if it makes sense to cast her. Should we cast a child? Should we cast a new kid? And ultimately we ended up, she really lobbied for the part, and ultimately we were like, yeah, she should do it. And so Isabel Fuhrman came back 10 years later,
And she's amazing.
and she's incredible in the prequel called Orphan First Kill, which Meredith actually came up with that title.
Yeah.
First Kill.
And
That's
Orphan First
title.
Kill. It was, it did really well. It was Brent Bell directed it, and also because of Meredith, Julia Stiles starred in the film, because we were shooting it during the pandemic and we were shooting up in Winnipeg, Canada. It turned out it was very difficult to get American actresses to be able to travel, either due to just they don't want to travel, and also the logistics and the quarantine period that you have to do in Canada. But Meredith was watching you can talk about it.
No, I was watching a friend of mine's film called It's a Disaster, which is a really great dark comedy, and about people surviving a disaster at brunch. like there's been like an attack on the city and they're all having brunch. It's very funny. And my friend Todd Berger made that movie, and Julia Stiles was in it. And they were doing a screening of it and talking about how, on Zoom, she was in Canada. And we have been Julia Stiles fans since forever. 10 Things I Hate About You is one of our favorites. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, it's perfect synergy. She's amazing. She's perfect for the part. And she's already over the border. You can get her. Go get her. And then I think you called her people the next day, and she started the film.
Yeah, she was in the film, and she's great in the movie. And what I'm most proud of about the second movie the first film has an incredible twist, and which I will not spoil. But the second film also manages to have an incredible twist, and filming just wrapped on a third one, which
Third twist.
a third twist. But yeah, the film Orphans
They
just
keep getting away with it.
yeah, it's actually another prequel. It's a prequel to the prequel, but it's called Orphans, and that just wrapped. And
It's gonna be great.
Yeah,
It's gonna be really great.
So what is Erica Alexander starring in one of your plays, right? Or one of your features? What does she bring to the? It's called Stay, I believe, right? Stay. What does she bring to it? Why were you attracted to her as a?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. So I am about to shoot my first feature film, which is called Stay, in the summer, and it stars Erica Alexander, who I have loved. Talking about loving someone forever. I have loved. She was in this Queen Latifah sitcom in the '90s called Living Single. I don't know if you remember it. She played Maxine Shaw, the lawyer, and that was my absolute favorite character on television. Like her and Leslie Knope are like my absolute favorite, and Sydney Bristow. Like that's the trifecta.
Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation, and Sydney Bristow from Alias.
Parks
Okay,
and
Yeah, he's also like he remembers all the names and titles of things, and I just look at him and I'm like, "What's the thing?" So Eric Alexander is absolutely brilliant. This movie is about a woman who works for a healthcare. This is already a horror in and of itself. She works for a healthcare insurance company, and she's been working there for way too long, and they take way too much from her. And they ask, but she goes along with it. She's a team player because her 17-year-old daughter is about to go to college, so she can't rock the boat. And she's staying at these off-brand hotels that save her billion-dollar company money. And she stays at a particularly weird hotel that will not let her leave. And she's working so hard at first, she doesn't even notice. But when she notices everything in there is alive and trying to take from her, take hair in the shower, take from her luggage, take. And when she's trying to get out of there before it consumes her, she realizes that she's actually really trapped in her all-consuming job. And Erica Alexander, the movie is all her. She's going to be a tour de force in it. She's so talented. She's so brilliant, and she's so witty and quick, but also she's very funny. So it's something where it could easily be too bleak. It could easily be too dark and too upsetting. But she's going to, again, have these human moments that I love, where she's going to make it feel like, hey, how would you react? Like at one point something scary happens and she just goes, no. and things like that. She's just going to bring her own special flavor of her charm and her amazing personality and wit to this character that is going to go through all these like scary beats. So I cannot wait to work with her. She's one of my favorite actors of all time, and to be able to actually finally work with her is a dream come true.
Now, was she in Parks and Recreation?
She was not. That was Amy Poehler played Leslie Knope in that, so I was kind of hitting on a bunch of people at once when I talked about my favorites.
But Erica, Erica was in recently. She was in American Fiction, which she got a bunch of attention for. She was in Get Out, and she's about to debut in this new NBC series. That Tina Fey and Robert Carlock, who created 30 Rock, she and Tracy Morgan and Daniel Radcliffe are starring in it, and it actually premieres on this coming Sunday.
This Sunday after the Bears game.
After the Bears obviously will win.
I'm originally from Illinois, so I call it the Bears.
Tina Fey. Well, I haven't heard that name for a while, but that 30 Rock was one of the greats.
Yeah, it's her, and this show was created by her and the other co-creator of 30 Rock, Robert
Carlock. Yeah. And so it's called the Fall and Rise of Reggie Dinkins. It's on NBC and it stars Eric Alexander. Check it out.
Yeah.
We have nothing to do with that show, but we like Eric.
We love her.
We just love her.
Alex Baldwin should have just retired after that show. He's coming back.
It's such a good show.
He should have. He probably should have. Alec Baldwin had peaked with that.
He was wonderful. So Priscilla, let's move over to The Nice Guys, where you blended action with a very specific 1990s comedic tone. How did you ensure the chemistry between Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling translated from the script onto the screen?
I mean, I'd like to take full credit for it, but honestly, I had nothing to do with it. They're incredible actors, and the script by Shane Black, who directed the movie, was tremendous. Like, it's funny, that script...
He's one of the best writers in film history.
Like Shane Black, who wrote and directed that film, he had written Lethal Weapon. He wrote The Last Boy Scout. He wrote Long Kiss Goodnight. Really tremendous writer. And he wrote and directed his first film, which was the first film I worked on, which was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. but he had written Nice Guys with his co-writer Anthony Bagarozzi. They'd written it at the same time, like back in 2005 or 2004. So I read it, right back then, and I remember doing coverage on it and doing notes on it and thinking, wow, what an awesome script. And so to actually then be able to go produce the movie, like, in 2016 was amazing, an amazing opportunity. And to have Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, who are just, two tremendous actors. And in fact, I think you can see there's like a Korean poster behind me of it. Oh yeah, it's over you. Yeah, that's
There we go. I got it.
No, it's the other way.
I can figure this out. Ah,
We're doing it anyway.
it's one of these.
There's Russell Crowe.
There's one of them.
Oh, that's true. We've got multiple Nice Guys. The important part is it was an awesome movie. We shot. It was incredible to basically the script that I had read in 2004 to then go shoot that movie and like have it basically be the exact same script and have. I don't think it changed very much at all from the early version to the movie that actually got made. But yeah, this was the kind of the introduction of Ryan Gosling doing his more comedic side. Before that he'd been very brooding. And it was nice for Russell Crowe to get to also loosen up a bit, and they play off each other incredibly well.
Yeah.
It was it's funny, the movie when it came out in the summer of 2016, and it was I think at the time it didn't do as well as we'd all hoped. But in the years since, so many people have seen it and love it, and it's my great dream to try and get those guys back together.
Ryan Gosling, yeah, he wasn't in The Big Short, was he? Was he the?
He was, yeah.
He was terrific. He's the one that made the big pitch with the blocks on the table.
Yeah.
About the mortgage-backed securities.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, Gosling's great, but just it's funny because prior to that he'd done so many kind of serious roles, romantic roles, and now I feel like a lot of the stuff he's done since then, playing Ken in Barbie and in playing the Lee Majors role in the remake of Fall Guy, I think are all, you can draw a straight line from his role in Nice Guys.
Wow.
I have a question. And this is for both of you, but more to Meredith. How did your reading comic books in your early years or teenage years or preteens, how did that influence you? Because this is a lead up, Meredith, to Cowboys and Aliens. You were a comic book editor, and that became the genesis for the movie with Harrison Ford, Daniel Craig, and Olivia Wilde. How did comic books play a part in your early years?
I would say yes. I loved the X-Men. There was that animated series in the 90s, right? The 90s. Oh my God. I think everyone who was a kid at that time loved it. And I read a lot of the comic books for X-Men at the time, fell in love with comic books. I would say working in comic books was some of the best screenwriting training I had in my life. It was interesting because it was a very structured, at least the company I worked for, it was a very structured thing where there would be an initial release of 4 issues. And over the course of those 4 issues, the first issue, they were each about 20 to 25 pages. Each issue, like the first one was like act 1 of a feature. The issue 2 and 3 were like act 2 of a feature, and issue 4 was act 3 of a feature. And they were very strict that at the end of each issue, you needed a cliffhanger or a reveal or what we call a whammo moment. And you need that to get people to buy the next issue. And that's a strict, very, very strict need that these things have. You cannot be like, oh, but I like this scene. No, it either does its function. It either is a cliffhanger and gets people to buy the next one, or you have to replace it. And so coming from playwriting, coming from theater, which is so much more loose, there's a lot of different structures in that, but it's not the same. Screenwriting is very structured. Having to deliver with writers, with artists, so many issues that had such strict requirements, it really trained me to segue from playwriting to screenwriting. And I also just, the visual side of it really influenced me as a director. I love color. I love drama. The heightened reality. I think a lot of genre like horror, sci-fi, thriller, I equate that with my musical theater background, because I'm like, they're all heightened realities, and I just love that kind of drama.
Well, when you write scripts, do you use I wrote a bunch of scripts way back. sort of a hobby when I was in the investment business, and I used to use index cards to create a sequence before I started writing. To use, and some of these software programs that for script writers do have incorporate index cards, so to speak. Do you use that, or what's your?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think about Roald Dahl when he would write a book. He had this like little journal on him, and he would get ideas like, oh, what if a guy ran a chocolate factory? Oh, what if he was retiring? Oh, what if he wanted to give it to kids? Oh, what if there's a competition? And he would get little ideas and he'd add it into his journal. And he said that there would come a time when he had enough ideas accumulated that now it was a story, and that's when he would write. And I kind of am very similar. I'll either email myself or I'll start a folder. Or what I like to do is I do use programs where there's digital cards, and I'll add a card and I'll be like, well, this would have to be in Act 1 because these people haven't met yet. Or this would have to be at the end because this is when this is a payoff for this character. And I start just putting them where they go and putting in the ideas. And eventually, if you do that, you start to have a whole story in the right order. And I kind of do that because if you just say, okay, once upon a time, that is very difficult to just go into a story like that. And sometimes an idea just comes for a scene. Oh, wouldn't it be great if they had this big argument and it broke everyone up for the next section of the story? And that would have to go in the second act, So that is, I think index cards are huge still.
Yeah, well, they thought I took a screenwriting class once from somebody named Freeman. I don't know. He was big. It's a third, a third, a third, right? You divide it into thirds, just
yes,
as a rule of thumb, typically. That's a pretty helpful technique.
Yeah, the more you divide it up, the easier it is to tackle. It's just otherwise it can seem so. Even though you're looking again at like 90 to 110 pages, most often, it can feel really hard, and also it can feel like writing a book, even though it's so shorter. But it's basically, I compare screenwriting to novel writing as I would compare like haiku to a poem. It's all about trying to say something with as few words as possible, but you're still saying a whole lot of story. So I'm a big believer in breaking things up, planning it out. As a director, I'm all about planning things out. So that's just not everyone does it this way, but that's my way.
If you saw from her website for Tether, the amount of preparation she did for a short film that was, literally a 15-minute short film, like it was,
storyboard,
6 months of prep,
animatics, all these things. You got to prepare, and then everything will go wrong, and you'll have to be flexible. That's basically
right. But I always like the films that start out with 5 minutes of just a panorama or going to building the tension before anybody says anything. It's always you can't get away with that all the time if you're doing it.
It's tough. It's harder now, but I think that's why those stand out. As it is yes, definitely it's harder to do now, but it is ultimately a visual medium. I mean, there was a movie that I had worked on that we didn't make, but someone finally just made it. It was called Motor City. There was an action movie that had no dialogue. It was a dialogue-free movie, and I'm very curious to see how the new version that they made ended up turned out, because it's tough. It's tough. Like dialogue is even though it is a visual medium, like sometimes dialogue could be a crutch, but also some of the most memorable pieces of film are clever quips and memorable bits of dialogue, and
like Another Day in Paradise. Remember in Pulp Fiction, or a Die Hard, he's running along and he looks at the camera and he says, "Another Day in Paradise." Shot at. That had to be.
Yeah.
And you have to balance it, like as a director and also as a producer, because you're thinking of the final product. But you have to balance these words and the dialogue and the plot, and you have to balance it with those moments that you were talking about, where they're purely visual art, beauty, moments of cinema.
That was the point that Mary Pickford made to I think it was Lemley or whatever it was, that there's too many words because it's doing these plays.
You got to remember, it is a visual medium.
That's what she said. So let's do the novels. Just flaunting my knowledge of Hollywood history.
No, that's good. That's good. Look, that's by the way, that's like all I know about is movies. Like I couldn't. My parents they were like, again, very supportive, but they're like, "What's your fallback plan going to be if it doesn't work out in movies?" I'm like, "Oh, well, that's easy. I'll own and operate a bunch of Blockbuster video stores." But I can't do that now, so they're all gone. So we're making this work.
I have a question for Ethan. One of my very favorite actors in the whole world is Liam Neeson. I just love him. And Unknown was, I didn't realize, because when I was researching the movies you've worked on, I was talking to Eric. He was still at my house visiting me, and until Wednesday of this week. And I said, did he say Dark Castle? No. Well, who was the producer? I mean, what studio was it? Because normally it's not. Those movies were produced by Netflix. The later
So
ones.
what we had on so Dark Castle, so Silver Pictures, just taking a step back, producer Joel Silver, who again did Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Matrix, Predator. He had Silver Pictures, but he wanted to have a horror division, so he created Dark Castle. And so for the first few years of Dark Castle's existence, it only made horror films, starting with a remake of House on Haunted Hill. Ostensibly, it was going to be remakes of William Castle titles. He was a major, genre producer in the 50s and 60s, and and even I think into the 70s, and made a lot of films that inspired Joel Silver, Robert Zemeckis, Richard Donner, who created Dark Castle. But in the mid-aughts, I think it was 2005 or 6, Dark Castle began to spin off and do other non-horror titles. But it was basically genre titles that weren't giant studio movies, that were like a little more contained, thrillers and smaller action movies. And so Unknown was done by Dark Castle, still distributed by Warner Brothers, like all the Silver Pictures movies. But it was this, the movie was under $40 million budget. But it was a great piece. And working with Liam Neeson, we shot the movie in Berlin. John McClett-Sarah, again, who had directed Orphan. In fact, when we were trying to find a filmmaker for it, we wanted Jama, and Liam Neeson was like, I don't know, doesn't he just do like horror movies? And we're like, just watch Orphan, and you tell us.
Orphan is so beautiful.
And then he watched Orphan. He's like, okay, he can direct the movie.
Yeah, so
And Jama is become very successful as a director. He's directed all of the Liam Neeson movies. And his
a bunch of Dwayne Johnson movies. Yeah, he directed the Jungle Cruise Disney movie. He directed Black Adam.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's great. He's a beautiful, wonderful visual filmmaker. Really smart. And so he directed Unknown. That was his first collaboration with Liam Neeson. But yeah, working with Liam is great because he's a professional, and it was really interesting to. Obviously, he'd been very successful in his life, and he'd been nominated for an Academy Award and all of that. But he had not found. Again, he'd been very successful, but he had not been as successful as all of a sudden after Taken, he changed completely sort of how he was viewed. He had been doing a lot of great mentor roles, like in Star Wars and in Kingdom of Heaven, and
considered very classy.
Batman Begins. You bring him into class and movie up, but now he actually became bankable as the lead, as an action lead.
Star,
It was interesting. This was really the first one he did after Taken. And it was interesting to see him still kind of getting into that mode and being. I remember it was fun. There was a day it was early on. We hadn't started shooting yet. It was still in pre-production, and he'd come in for costume fittings. And he comes in. He looks like he's a very handsome man, but he looks like a regular guy, more or less. And and then he comes out of hair and makeup. I'm like, and he is James Bond. Like when he comes out, you're like, this guy. I mean, it's incredible. Like. And also, that's when he does like the voice and he changes his posture and and you're like, oh, it's an incredible.
He's a head to toe actor.
Like but what he brought to that movie and the gravitas he brought to the film, and it was a movie that we wanted to be a fun kind of Hitchcockian throwback thriller, and it was great. It was really successful. I think it may still be the most successful of those Dark Castle films. And we're trying to make a TV series out of it. So let's see what happens.
Ethan, I wanted to mention, Taken, I think, was filmed in Berlin, right?
I don't know, or maybe Paris.
Because,
Unknown we shot in Berlin.
I know one of the movies that Liam Neeson was in that Jaume Collet-Serra, we have to mention his last name. He's from Barcelona originally.
Yes.
Eric he invited Eric to come, and so Eric was there for 2 weeks. And at one point he said, hey, Eric, I want you to film this car scene, the there's this incredible car scene. Isn't that in Taken? And the cars are going, and it's just a exhilarating filming. And Eric did that. I can't believe it.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
amazing. I don't know what film that is, because Jama and Liam Neeson did like 4 movies together. So
Yeah.
they did Unknown, Nonstop, which I also worked on, and then they did a film called The Commuter, and then there's another film called Walk Among the Tombstones. So it could have been any of those. I don't know, but
That's really cool.
That's an amazing story. I actually was not aware of that. That's
Yeah.
great.
he's a very generous guy, and I
Yeah.
first met him years and years ago. I was visiting Eric for Christmas, and I had brought some Swedish glögg along, and I had a bottle for Eric, and then I had an extra bottle, and then Jean invited us over to his house, and this was in his early days. I don't think he was struggling still, but his house had very little furniture. So we're in a living room with a sofa, a chair, and a table, you know, and I think that was it. And he loved my Swedish glögg.
Of course.
Again, I have never been offered this glurg, but it sounds wonderful.
And I thought he was such
Still
a
time.
sweetheart. He was such a sweetheart and very kind and patient. And as a director, those things are important. And so, Meredith, you're a director. Tell me about your times of having to be very patient and kind with your crew and with your actors. And maybe you might mention Judith and Lena Steele and and Void. See, I've done my research.
Yes, very impressive. I'm very impressed. Yeah, no, it's interesting because yes, it's all about a director's job is basically 90% communication. You have a vision and you need to explain something that's just in your head to other people, and then also balance collaborating with these other brilliant people who might also have great ideas to add on to that vision. So you have to be really clear and focused, but you also have to be malleable and flexible to the better idea. So what I love about working with actors is like you're talking about Liam Neeson, and I was talking about Lana Steele. The Lily Singh who starred in Lana Steele, she came from being an influencer. Your work with like Liam Neeson, he came from also theater. And Erica Alexander, who I'll be working with, she was in one of the most famous theater pieces, Peter Brook's Mahabharata, but she also has like different schools of thought that she's learned because she's mostly a sitcom actress. And so what I love is that I love finding an actor's language and then using that to communicate with them. So you have to be really like flexible to see what works, because at the end of the day, you want it to work. The most important thing is not ego. It's not who was right. It's not which way things are going to go. It's what's going to get you there. What's going to get the best movie. This person, like for instance, one person I worked with wanted me to give them line readings, like wanted me to say the line exactly how she was supposed to say it, and then she wanted to just repeat it. Whereas someone who's more from theater would be like, never say the same words that I'm going to say. And so if I wanted to explain, like, this is really you trying to do this, I would avoid using the words in the line. I would use synonyms and things to communicate. So you really find like the best way that they can do their best, because at the end of the day, we're trying to get the best performance. We want them to do their best. And what Ethan and I like to do on set is we like to lead with respect and kindness and collaboration and openness. Making a movie, it's so hard. It's so hard. And we basically have this philosophy that why make it harder? You're all in this together. You all chose to be here. No one is forced to be here. No one is here just because this is the only job in town. Like you chose to be here. We have this love in common. So let's find moments of connection. And when things get stressful, when things get hard, what I tend to do is I get lower and quieter and a little bit more direct. And that helps people focus and remind them why we're here. I think screaming, swearing at people. I swear like a sailor, but I don't tolerate people swearing at other people. And so we try and like set that tone, which is a constant balancing act. You have to have constant patience. And there are times when you're like, I could run out of here screaming, and no one would stop me. But you have to stay and and keep
Close the
going.
door on your way out, right?
Exactly. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a director. His name's Dave Bruckner, and he's done a lot of horror films. And we were talking about what makes a great film versus a mediocre film. Because there's like not really good. There's like either great or there's mediocre, right? And or there's flat out bad. But we won't talk about that. And we came to the conclusion that it's about being relentless. You have to have just this nonstop persistence, nonstop energy. Like you can never say that's good enough. The second you say something is that's good enough, you're a mediocre. You've lost your chance at great. You have to be like, okay, we're tired. We're all tired, but let's try one more time. And so you have to cheerlead that way, but you also cheerlead yourself, and you just got to be like, one more time, just you can get it. You can get it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of coaxing and a lot of communication.
Yeah, with shifting, that's a wonderful discussion, I think, of it's like in any business, is really basically you got to motivate people. You got to be sensitive to their interests. So, well, tell us about artificial intelligence and filmmaking. I mean, it's a big presence, and we hear about it every day. And these questions were all generated from data, and artificial intelligence. How do you see the film industry going in 5 or 10 years, given this sort of stalking horse? We're creating content. I mean, the
We
producers.
have lots of thoughts on
Oh
this.
my gosh, there's so many thoughts. There could be hours of hours.
Well, the producers will always be there. Someone has to produce the film, and someone's got to do this and that. But the content, the writing of the films, I guess maybe we could start there.
Look, maybe this is because I also am a writer, and I just believe I firmly believe the human element is always important. I think you can tell when it's not there. I think even if you look at like visual effects, as good as visual effects are now, if you see a model versus something that's just done on a computer, the model always looks better. Like if you look at Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park from 1993, some of the effects in that movie hold up better than the ones in the movie that just came out.
Yes. And that's a combination. Well, that's the thing. It's like it's a combination, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we would never use anything, but also it doesn't replace the things that work.
Yeah. Like how do you use it as a tool? How do you
exactly a tool for a human, not replacing a human.
Yeah. I and certainly look, the world and definitely the film industry is always in a state of evolution, going from black and white silent films that were a square to color, to talkies and color, and movies that became like CinemaScope. But I think that again those are just tools.
Yeah.
They're not like they didn't. And yes, did some people lose their job? I guess like the piano players in the who would play in the silent theaters. Yes, but like for the most part, the storytelling is kind of the most important aspect.
And then they would get jobs in the symphony that then records for the score.
It should blow it. It should blow it wide open. Because you figure somebody, brilliant person in a poor Adirondack hut, if he has access to Gemini or Claude or whatever, could create something that based very handily do versions of this and that. I mean, so I would think it's like in the law, like they say in the legal profession, is that with tools like this, rather than joining some big law firm and getting paid a lot of money, you get 3 or 4 of your friends and start your own law firm. And with the tools like this that are so powerful,
the ways that I've seen it work is so a visual effects person I know, he said something that was very helpful about it is it allowed him to do small coding programs so very easily. So he was able to say, hey, I need to remove these like pieces of dust from something, and it's really like it would take him hours to piece by piece do it. Instead, he was able to do like a small like quick code that was very targeted and very specific and could just do that one thing. Because you like these things, AI is not very good. So it's not good at it yet. So you have to be really, really careful and very specific and do small tasks. And he was able to do that. And he said that saved me hours. So that's in that way it's a tool. It's like how we'll use something to scrub sound or whatever. Like
to tag out artifact like sound like pops and microphone pops and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Like a sound effects a sound designer can use it to be like, hey, there's a frequency that's coming in from this microphone that's attached. Just eliminate that frequency. And that's something that a computer can do better than a human. That's a tool for a sound designer. If you have a human using a tool, then you're not so bad, because it's still at least because AI, if you rely on it too much, then you get like some of the questions from Gemini they're just a little bit funny, but I know what you mean. But because AI, the big problem is people, I think, want to rely on it too much, and they want to replace people with it, and it's just not capable. For instance, I played around with the Adobe AI to analyze scripts, because I'm like, probably what's going to happen is an executive is going to run my script through this, and rather than read it themselves, they're just going to look at this this summary readout, and that's frustrating. But let's see what they're going to see. And then for fun, I put Casablanca through it.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, so what's wrong with Casablanca AI? And it said, it knew I was trying to trick it. It said, this is universally accepted to be one of the best films ever made, but it had notes.
Which is great. I love that the machine has notes on Casablanca.
So
better. It said
That's
it could have a better ending.
It wanted. Just to say that
the ending was very tricky, wasn't it? That was a big debate. Was the ending right? Which way it would go ahead? I mean, interrupt you there.
Well, but to your point, it was like, what if it didn't want Rick and Ilsa to end up together, but it did want to know what happened after Ilsa and Victor Laszlo took off, to make sure that they landed safely and were happy together.
Yeah, so this movie needs one more scene where you see the plane landing safely, and you see the two of them coming off the plane very much in love. And it was then that I realized, oh, computers and machines and math, these things need solutions to equations. They need solutions and closure. Yeah. And they cannot handle ambiguity. They cannot handle people reading into things their own way, or like a bittersweet ending, or like something that doesn't totally wrap up every way. Really, it can't handle it, because they need an answer that is its function, to answer a question. And so it was like, well, I just, you just need to have a lot of the notes were like, you should have a little bit more here to make this really clear. And while clarity is super important, we hammer this a lot when we are producers and we work with writers. Not everything has to be like tied up with a bow. Like Casablanca would not be better if you had an extra scene at the end with a plane landing and those two are just very in love, and that's the end. That would be insane.
A freeze frame high five with Ingrid Bergman and Paul Henry.
Okay, I have a final question, because we have about 3 minutes left, and this goes to both of you, Ethan and Meredith. What are your aspirations for the future? You have a new company. How do you pronounce Bella?
Beryllium. Yeah, our new company is Beryllium Entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so what are the kinds of films and projects, let's put it that way, that you are aspiring to, or you're fancifully thinking about?
I'll speak briefly, and then I'll let you take over. But our focus is genre films, sci-fi, horror, thriller, fantasy, action, combination thereof. That, we both worked on so many things that we're not really about something. And we want to tell stories that, are meaningful, that are commercial, but have resonance and thematically speak to things we want to talk about. Stay, which will be the first feature out of the gate for us at Beryllium, is about, yes, it's a fun horror movie in an evil hotel, but it's also about the kind of almost supernatural evils of the health insurance industry, and the way that it just takes and takes, and is
corporate culture is taking and taking.
And Meredith, how about you?
Same thing. We're very aligned on this. We want to make popcorn roller coaster ride, things you have fun seeing in a theater, things you have fun seeing more than once. If it pops on TV someday, we want it to be the kind of movie that people are like, oh, I like this, and we'll watch. So repeat viewing kind of thing. But at the same time, you think about, what are we putting out in the world? What are we saying? And so everything has something it's saying, whether it's political, like Stay, or whether it's emotional, like Tether. Tether is about how the universe is always trying to kill us. The only way we're going to survive is by working together and with each other. So that, as long as we're putting something out there, we feel like that will resonate. That will stand the test of time.
Right. So you have a message as well as a media to
exactly.
and to get it out. Yeah. Well, it's been just wonderful talking to both of
Yeah.
you. Bill, don't you think this is one of our best interviews?
Yeah, I'd say it's the best.
You say that to all the interviewees.
No,
Thank you.
no, we
This has been
don't.
wonderful.
But you get a kick out of this because
We've seen a
when
lot
we interviewed Naveed,
Mm.
we both worked.
Sure,
with,
yeah.
You worked with Naveed, right? And we said, oh, that is the best one we've had. But now we have another one that's the best, and both of these were referred by my son. So
Yes.
he has wonderful friends and compadres in the business.
And good taste. Yeah.
These are real pros from
Yeah.
the
So
West Coast.
yes. So we
Yes.
really thank you so much for being here, and we wish you the best of luck in the future. You're going to do wonderful things as a team and individually, I'm sure. Thank you
so much for
so
having
much.
us.
Thanks, and come back in a year, don't you think? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll let you know how it's all going. We'll show you some footage
We'll
from
do a
stay.
reunion.
Yeah.